Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance.
It's an SEC game day in Tuscaloosa. You're looking live at the Walk of Champions. In just about an hour and a half, the undefeated third-ranked Crimson Tide will enter Bryant-Denny Stadium to face off against the Florida Gators. Now we take you inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. The field looks beautiful. It's ready for action. It's Alabama's first SEC game this year, and it's teacher versus student, if you will, as Nick Saban faces off against his old assistant coach, Will Muschamp. And welcome in, everybody, to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris. We're live outside Reese Pfeiffer Hall, just catty corner from the quad, on the campus of the University of Alabama. We're with you for the next hour previewing this huge SEC matchup, and what a show we have in store for you. Here's the lineup. We'll have another installment of Milliseconds. It's a really good one with Landon Collins. We'll sit down with the junior safety who's set to face off against his brother today. Plus, we have guests, and not just any guests, some really special ones. Former Florida Gator and Hoover High School standout Chad Jackson will join us for some perspective from the Florida side. And two true coaching legends will be on the set, Bobby Bowden and Howard Schnellenberger. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, we'll break this game down for you as well, as we always do. So a lot of great stuff to look forward to on CTKO, and we start like we do every week with a look at Bama headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama headlines.
Well, you've seen the hit by now. Nick Perry, Alabama senior safety, was ejected from last week's win over Southern Mississippi for targeting. And by rule, he's required to sit out the first half of this game. And that's what he'll do. He'll be back in the secondary in the third quarter today against Florida. Alabama does get a player back today. DeAndrew White hasn't played since separating his shoulder in the season-opening win over West Virginia. He's expected to play today. Another injury update. Eddie Jackson could be limited as well at cornerback, opening the door for freshman Tony Brown to get on the field, possibly in a starting role. Much more game breakdown and discussion is coming up, but now it's time, like we always like to do, to take you for a trip around campus and check in with the rest of our CTKO crew. Richard Scott is live on the Walk of Champions, and Chelsea Barton is standing by on the quad. First, let's talk with Chelsea, who gives us a feel for the atmosphere for the first SEC game of the year. Chelsea?
Hey Gary, we're live out here on the quad where so many exciting things are happening today, including the SEC Nation setup that we've got over here just behind us across the way. As you can see, the sidewalks and streets are packed with fans making their way to see this much anticipated matchup between the Crimson Tide and the Gators. Of course, we're seeing much more crimson and white out here today, but there is some of that blue and orange in the mix. We've heard from fans on both ends today, and one thing's for sure, these folks are more than ready to see some SEC football here today in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to have a lot more live coverage headed your way from the quad, including our tailgaters of the week. But for now, Gary.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Looking forward to that. And next, let's head down to the Walk of Champions, where Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott will give us a first look at today's forecast. Richard?
Hey, Gary, not too bad out here. A little more active. A huge game obviously happened this afternoon in Tuscaloosa. We're out here, as Gary said, live on the Walk of Champions. Let's check out what's happening right now, because it's getting a little warmer today. Not like last game, which was absolutely gorgeous. This game, a little warmer. 81 degrees currently in Tuscaloosa, 79 in Birmingham now. Temperatures will continue to warm. Hey, we got full sunshine out there. No cloud cover at all. That means temperatures will continue to modify across the area this afternoon. No rain to talk about for this game if you got plans outdoors. Current conditions for Tuscaloosa. We still got a wind that's been variable. It's mainly out of the east, around 7 miles per hour. That's driving the dew points and the humidity a little bit lower today. So it is more bearable. If you've been outdoors, you probably noticed that. But I'm telling you, if you're sitting in the stadium for the game day forecast, it is going to be hot. So here in the Tuscaloosa area, I expect temperatures in the upper 80s as early as 2 o'clock, around 88 at 2 and around 4 o'clock. An all-important game day forecast at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And by the way, there's a live look at Bryant-Denny Stadium now. It is empty, but That's going to change pretty quickly. Temperatures around 88 to 2:30 kickoff as Alabama takes on Florida, around 87 at halftime. And we could dip into those low 80s to wrap up things. Temperatures in the game there. But again, it's going to be a hot game. If you're inside the stadium, take the sunscreen. If you're tailgating outside the stadium, best word of advice, find a shade tree, Gary.
All right, Richard, definitely going to be a hot one out here today for sure, so we'll take precautions. Well, we're jam-packed today on CTKO, and next we're breaking down the Alabama defense. How will they hold up with injuries and players missing out of the secondary against Kurt Roper's Florida offense? And joining us next on Crimson Tide Kickoff, a true coaching legend. Bobby Bowden will be on set with us to discuss his new book, among other things. You don't want to miss that. Crimson Tide Kickoff is off and rolling. And we'll keep rolling right after the break. Stay with us here on WVUA TV. It wasn't too long ago that the Tide and the Gators met on the field, 2011 in Gainesville. Florida bit first. John Brantley to Andre DeVos, but from there on it was all Alabama. Trent Richardson on offense, Courtney Upshaw on defense. The Tide just too much in the swamp that night as they rolled to a 38-10 win over the Gators on their way to Nick Saban's second national championship at Alabama. And this is the field of battle today. Bryant-Denny Stadium looking beautiful as usual. And the last time that the Gators were here was 2010, and Alabama sent them home packing with a loss that game as well, 31-6. Well, welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff, and we are absolutely honored to have a true coaching legend with us. Bobby Bowden, he really needs no introduction, but I will mention that you've won more games than any college football coach in the game at the Division I level.
Well, if you coach as long as I do, you're gonna win that. You know, I coached 57 years, started at Samford University, which used to be Howard College. I was telling you, I used to sit on the steps here when I was in school here, and I was very fortunate. I had a very fortunate career.
Yeah, one thing, you don't make it that long if you don't win some games, because if you lose too many, you'll be in another line of work, won't you?
There's not but one answer in college coaching, man. You better win.
Let's talk about your new book. And I know you've written a number of books, but this is the second with your son, Steve, and this is all post-football. Faith has always been a big part of your life. You haven't hidden that from anybody, whether it was on the football field or in your personal life, but the wisdom of faith. Tell me about this book and why you decided to do it.
Well, my son Steve is a writer, and he came to me. We've had all these football books written, and said, you know, we need to do something on a different subject. And faith, you know, faith was always so big in my life because, you know, we all have problems. Everybody has problems. I don't know yours. You don't know mine.
That's right.
But we got problems.
Yes, sir.
And we require a higher body to help us solve them. At least that's what I believe, you know, and that's where faith comes in. You know, my faith, if somebody said, what does faith mean to you? Faith to me is a belief in the power of God, you know? And so, Bobby, when you get in problems, ask God to help you. And I believe he will. That's my faith.
That's right.
I can't see it.
That's right.
I just believe it, you know?
Yes, sir.
And so the book is written on the 57 years I spent coaching, of some of the things that I learned and how faith helped me and things like that. You know, hoping some young boy or some young girl coming up can maybe mean something to them, you know?
You know, I'm going to ask you a couple Alabama questions in a moment, but let's turn our attention to Florida State, and there's a big story obviously circulating there with Jameis Winston, Hueytown native, just right up the road here, Heisman Trophy winner, incredible talent. Some of his decision-making off the field seems questionable, to say the least. And then this past week, we don't know if he stood on a table, if he just stood among students, but he made a lewd comment that's been going around on the internet. That's documented. Initially, the school suspended him just for the first half. And last night announced that he'll miss the entire game. Your thoughts on what's going on with him? I know you had to handle difficult situations, but this is one.
I think they finally got it right. You know, suspending him for half of a game, there were some people skeptical of that. I'm talking about some Florida State people, you know, and I just found out last night, because I've been up here in Alabama the whole last 3 or 4 days, that they have suspended for a game. I think they're probably right. You know what? Because do you remember the example of Joe Namath here back in when he was in school, how Bear wouldn't let him play in the bowl game, you know, because he did something probably not as bad as this one was, you know, and I think Joe feels like it probably saved his career. And maybe this will save him. We've all been so disappointed in what Jameson has done. You know what?
Right.
And maybe this will get him to, you know, behave himself in that regard.
I hope so, because at some point your actions speak louder than your
Oh
words.
yeah. And I'm not sure how much longer Florida State would put up with something like this. But Jimbo's pretty tough. Jimbo's an excellent coach. He's one of, you know, he got his education up at Sanford, same place I did.
I know that.
And he's an old West Virginian, and not far from Saban's hometown. You know what? And so again, I think they think that thing over real good. They'll do the right thing. But the big thing is, I hope that young man will learn from his mistakes and not repeat them.
You know, we're going to have Coach Schnellenberger on in a little bit. We were going to try to get y'all together, but time issues wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know a lot of people follow your career. When you got to Florida State in the mid-'70s, they weren't winning like they are now.
No,
in fact, they had been losing a lot.
Yeah.
And then Coach Schnellenberger came to Miami in 1979. They had almost dropped the program. I wonder then if you realized that rivalry between those two schools could benefit both of you and become, through the 80s and 90s, the greatest rivalry in college football. Did you see that happen?
And you know, that's what it was back in those days.
Sir, it
you know
was.
what? And it all to me started. Howard claims that he built his program around. He saw us doing. We were winning, but no national championships. You know, so he comes in there and built that program up. The year he won the national championship, he beat us on the last play of the game on a field goal, 18-16.
Right, I remember that
then
one.
he wins the national championship. Well, when that happened, we said, golly, we can win one of these darn things. If he wins one, by golly, we can win one. And sure enough, later on, we did win a couple. And, of course, last year won another one, you know.
Right.
But a lot of it started with Howard Schnellenberger. I thought one of the great coaches down through the years.
Yeah, it's amazing that it took Florida, Miami, and Florida State so long to start winning. Now you just take it for granted with all that talent, but it had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Started with you at Florida State, Schnellenberger at Miami, and really Steve Spurrier at Florida.
Exactly.
Speaking of winning, I want to ask you about Nick Saban. I know Alabama growing up was your school. You made a decision to attend here and play football before transferring to Howard, later Sanford, and you've always held this place close in your heart. At one time it looked like you might coach here, but didn't happen. But Nick Saban, the job he's done in kind of revitalizing this program, and where does he stack up among college football coaches?
Well, you know, when Coach I idolized Coach Bryant.
Right.
I was coaching up at Sanford when he was at a peak here, and I was just starting off. So I was learning. So I'd come down and talk to him and Gene Stallings and Cutchins and all those guys. I really learned more football from them than any other place. You know what? And so Bear coaches here for 25 years. You know, I'm thinking, gosh, nobody will ever break his record. Well, actually, we won more games, because I coached longer. You know what? But now here comes Saban. I don't know. I'm amazed that he can follow somebody like Bryant and have the success he has. Right. That's a miracle of the job he's doing. And you take Schnellenberger, you take myself, you take Coach Bryant, you take Dooley over there at Georgia. None of us had the start that Saban has at Florida State. 3 out of 4 national championships. And he ain't through yet, I don't think.
That's right. Well, Coach, listen, I could talk to you all day, but you know the television business. We got to do other things. You got to go do some more interviews. But, man, I know you got that microphone in your hand, but I appreciate it so much. I really do. It's an honor and a privilege to have you on the program.
It's good to talk, and it's good to be back to Tuscaloosa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And you don't look anywhere close to 84. I know you say you're in the 4th quarter of your life, but I think you may go into overtime.
I hope it's the first part of it.
Thank you, Coach. All right, thanks to Coach Bobby Bowden. Next on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we'll look at the other side of the ball for Alabama, talk about the offense. Can Blake Sims put an end to the talk of a quarterback controversy? He's got a big stage to do it on today. And next, a key member of that secondary is the subject of this week's Milliseconds. Landon Collins gives us a feel for his sibling rivalry and what his mother thinks about his decision to go to Alabama now. Crimson Tide Kickoff is live from Tuscaloosa. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff. I'm Chelsea Barton, live out here on the quad with our tailgaters of the week. I've got Daniel Smith from Blount County here with me. Daniel, talk to me about this big group of people that you've already rounded up here this morning.
Oh, we got a great group here today, friends and family from different parts of the state, and we're ready to get this SEC season started.
Yes, sir. This is the first SEC game for Alabama. Talk to me about the hype around this. This is, real football, right?
Real football. A lot of Gator fans here, but we just we got to outdo them here today. So we got to get it going and have a good party here today.
Yes, sir. I understand we have an alumni of the University of Alabama here with us.
Yes, I'm Jonathan Roper, and I'm originally from Birmingham and graduated from UA in December, but I'm now living and working in Iowa, and I drove down for the game this weekend just to hang out and see family and friends.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back. It is my pleasure to present you guys with a gift from our sponsor, Krispy Kreme Donuts. And what you guys get is a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts each month for an entire year. Thanks to Krispy Kreme for doing that.
Krispy Kreme, roll tide to Krispy Kreme.
Well, they've got a mighty big bunch out here. Let's hear from them, guys. Who's going to win today?
Roll tide. Roll tide, yeah.
Roll Tide, Gary, back to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. I need to get hooked up with that Krispy Kreme deal. And my sidekick Bradley over here, he's already, just I can tell, he's wanting one right now, in fact. Well, the Gators and Tide are no stranger to big games, that's for sure, and that's why they routinely pull in some of the top recruiting classes in the country. In today's milliseconds, 2 of those recruits come from the same family, but they went in different directions. Here's B.J. Milliken with more.
I didn't shave today because I knew you had the facial hair, so I wanted to make you feel comfortable.
I like that.
Okay, this week you guys play Florida. You have someone you know quite well on that side of the ball. What's it going to be like playing against your brother?
It's going to be amazing. I mean, we've been growing up playing on the same team since we was yay high. And it's going to be fantastic because back in the household, it's always been competitive. If you ask my mom, she'd tell you she got stories of how competitive we were, coming from playing football in the house and putting holes in the wall and being so destructive that we destroyed the trampoline in our backyard and stuff like that. It's just always been competitive between us two, and I know definitely he's gonna try to overwork me during this game because it's probably be the last time he get to play me until he moves on.
Big brother is going to give little brother a lesson. Is that the hope?
As always the guy. You gotta give him a lesson. Gotta show him the ropes and make sure he got that fire in his heart always, because I mean, he knows how long we took to get to this road and how much effort and hard work we put into it, and you got to continue that.
Now, a lot was made of your commitments back in the Under Armour game, and your mom kind of looking disappointed that you chose Alabama instead of her favorite team, LSU. Now, your brother is at Florida, you're at Alabama. How has she handled that no Tigers in the family?
She's handled it well. I mean, she's just glad that both of her boys is in college and doing their thing as we always been doing. And she's just called our house a split household between Florida and Alabama now, and I don't know what she's gonna do for the game. I'm wondering what she's gonna wear or what she's gonna have on. I just want to see the picture. That's all I want to see, what she's gonna wear, because she got 2 boys now and they're gonna try to do their best on the field for her.
There you go. Maybe she could do a split jersey.
Maybe.
One half Bama and Landon, and the other half.
It gotta be more Bama. I'm the oldest.
There you go. You had last year guys like HaHa and Vinny back there who kind of mentored you, and now you're the guy that people are looking for. How's that been, that kind of transition to being a leader?
It's definitely been an easy and sometimes tough road, because you don't know. You got to learn how to talk to specific players. There's only certain ways you talk to them, and that's the hardest part about getting to know the players and being able to just open up with them, because certain players are certain ways and you just can't come at anybody a certain way. I try to lead as much by example than talking, because I'm not very a talkative person. I'm very to myself and humble. And with my teammates, I try to talk to them as much as possible, because I got to get to know them and be able to gain their trust as them gain my trust, so we can all be the same on the field.
You've had the opportunity to score a touchdown last year against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. You've had the opportunity to lay some big hits. If you had to choose one, what's more fun to do, the big hit or scoring a touchdown?
If I was an offensive player, it'd probably be scoring a touchdown, but for me, it's a big hit. I mean, it just set the tone and set the tempo, set the mood of the game, and letting the opponents that know that we are here. If y'all throw the ball, y'all run the ball, we come to lay the wood on y'all. That's just what I like to do, is set the tone. So knowing that no receivers, quarterback, running backs, that you run this way, you run that way, we come to get you.
Thanks, BJ. Landon has become an irreplaceable piece of this Tide defense. You see some stats. He's been consistent, 8 or more tackles in 5 of the last 6 games, including 12 last week against Southern Miss. And he'll need a big day today against the Florida Gators in that explosive offense. And that's where we begin our game breakdown today. Alabama's defense going up against that Florida offense. The Tide, of course, without Jarrett Williams in the secondary, and Nick Perry will miss the first half. They'll have the job of their teammates will have the job of slowing down Jeff Driscoll. He's having a nice season so far for the Gators, and he has most of his weapons on offense healthy, including DeMarcus Robinson, who had over 200 yards receiving against Kentucky. Trey DePriest knows the challenge that lies ahead for the Alabama D.
They got a real good offense, a whole bunch of athletes, but they got a real big O-line, and they're good at what they do. And they got a running back that runs behind his pads, and ain't scared to lower his shoulder and just go. So that's what I've seen.
And here's a look at the Alabama defense by the numbers. The Tide still getting it done against the run. They lead the nation, allowing only 47 yards per contest on the ground. Florida, though, runs for more than 248 yards per game, at least so far in their first 2 games this season. Well, still a lot to get to on CTKO. Next up, we check in on a couple of former Florida Gators. One of them is a former Heisman Trophy winning quarterback turned SEC Nation analyst. Tim Tebow is in town, and he discusses the Gators matchup against the Tide. We'll also head out to the Quad and catch up with Chelsea Barton. That's all coming up next as CTKO continues. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. SEC Nation making its Tuscaloosa debut today. That meant the entire crew in town, and that includes former Florida Gator quarterback Tim Tebow. He gave us his thoughts on the matchup today between Alabama and Florida.
You really don't see a lot of teams be able to run the ball against Will Muschamp defenses, and if they do that, they'll put the game in Blake Sims' hands, who, in my opinion, has played very well so far this year and done everything that he's been asked to do and done it well. Plus, he's the only quarterback probably since Andrew Zhao, since he left Alabama, that can probably win a game with his legs if asked to.
So what did Andrew Zhao think of Tebow's comparison? You see right there, that guy can run, I throw it. That from Andrew Zhao. Well, here's a look at the Gators at a glance. They've only played 2 games, a 65-0 blowout against Eastern Michigan and last week's close call in triple overtime against Kentucky. They have some weapons. One is DeMarcus Robinson, who already has 21 receptions in just 2 games this season. All right, let's now go out on the Quad and check in with our Chelsea Barton, who is standing by with something interesting as always. Chelsea?
Hey, Gary, I've seen a lot of it out here today. Some folks wearing red with friends who are wearing blue, and I've caught up with a group of folks who that is true for. Kathy, tell me about yourself. I understand you're from Florida.
I'm from Christopher, Florida, which is about an hour away from Gainesville, so I'm up visiting some Bama friends and here at the game, looking forward to tailgating. They wanted me to wear red, but wasn't happening, so
awesome.
I'm sporting the orange and blue today.
Awesome. I understand, they're pretty good friends. They've given you a ticket to this game.
They are, yeah, so I'm excited.
And are you guys from Alabama?
We live in Birmingham. This is my son Jackson, his friend Colton. We are college friends and invited her to come for this weekend.
Perfect. Well, we hope you guys have a great time, and hopefully, this friendship will last after the game. Thanks, Gary. Back to you.
All right. She might be able to tell us what Gator tastes like. We'll stay tuned for that. All right. Thank you, Chelsea, so much. And we're keeping it rolling here on CTKO. Next up, we've got a real treat for you, so don't change that channel. Football royalty will join us again. We already had Bobby Bowden. Howard Schnellenberger will be on set to talk about his coaching career. He's got a new book as well. And, of course, he's back to be honored as part of that 1964 national championship team at Alabama today. He was the offensive coordinator for Coach Bryant during that season. So we've got legendary coaches galore. We'll be back with more CTKO. You stay with us right here live from Tuscaloosa after this timeout.
Shouldn't I be looking at it?
What a special weekend for Alabama football. It's the 50th anniversary of the 1964 national championship team. They're being honored at halftime today. That team won Coach Bryant's second national title at the capstone. Joe Namath, Steve Sloan, Ray Perkins. There were some really good players on that squad, and there was also some good coaches in addition to Coach Bryant. We got a real treat for anybody who's a football fan. One of the assistants on that 1964 team, offensive coordinator Howard Schnellenberger, joins us now. Coach, what an honor to have you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Gosh, I'm back on campus finally after 50 years.
Hey, looks a little bit different than when you left, doesn't it?
Oh, my God. The number of people, the looks of the people, the looks of the university, the looks of the stadium. It's unbelievable.
You know what the enrollment is now?
I have no idea.
36,000.
Holy smoke, it was about 20, about 10 when I was here, I guess.
And it stayed right around 20 for years.
Our stadium was about 20.
Yeah, and now it's 101,000. It is something else. Well, you know how important football is. Hey, I want to talk some football with you, but right off the top, I want you to talk about your new book, Passing the Torch, winning football program, building winning football programs with a dose of swagger along the way, something you know about. Talk about the decision to write the book and what it's all about.
The decision was made to write a book about this great game of American football and how I as a passer of the torch, gained all that stuff from 5 coaches that were Hall of Famers. Bryant was one of them, Shula was one of them, George Allen, Blanton Collier, and my high school coach. But Alabama plays a big part in that. I was recruited. There's a big story about that by Bryant. I played for him 2 years at Kentucky. There's a big part of that's about it, Bryant. And then the time I came down here in 1961 through 65, 5 national champions, 5 years, 3 national championships, 5 bowl games, win 4, and only lose 4 games the whole time he was there. That's when I said, boy, this coaching is easy. But this made up a major part of the book, and I'm delighted with the book. We've already run through our first edition.
Wow.
5,000 books in 10 days.
Wow.
And we're down here, and we've had a great reception here.
Yeah, you can get it at bookstores, Amazon.com, all the usual places. I've read the liner notes, and I'm going to read the book because it'll get you hooked. Just read a couple pages of what it's all about. Speaking of Coach Bryant, your Alabama connections, and Miami. I want to get into more on that, but in 1979, you brought your first Miami team in here to Bryant-Denny Stadium. First time they had lights for a game. They brought them in, and it was 40-0. But even with Jim Kelly there, you could see that team was.
It was not 40-0.
What was it?
30-0.
30-0. Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm doing you wrong.
I had him right where I wanted it to have him at halftime. We were 0 and he was 10.
That's right.
I told my team at halftime, take care, boys. We're going to come out now. We got them right where we want them. We're going to hold them, shut them out, and we're going to score 2 touchdowns. And we're going to get out of here with a win. Obviously, I was wrong. I had forgot about all that telephone calling that was going on between all the people that talking to their priests, their pastors. Some of them even got the voodoo dials out. So they scored 20 points the second half. We scored none. 30-0 was the score.
All right, I'm sorry that I tried to give them an extra 10 points on you. They didn't need that. But you know what? You're talking about Miami. We had Coach Bowden on earlier, talking about his revitalization of Florida State, and we wanted to try to have you all together. We couldn't work it out time-wise, but people may not know this. Miami almost quit football, and you came there in '79. At first, did you see that Florida State rivalry as something that could benefit both programs?
Oh, I was with the Miami Dolphins with Don Shula. It just won the Super Bowl game, the 17-0 season, and I had divorced myself from him to go to Miami. That was a brave act or a dumb act, one of the two. But I surveyed that program and I studied it very closely and committed my life to that. And when I looked at how they had a great stadium, they had a great schedule, they had a great talent pool, and the only thing they didn't have was a belief that it could be done and the will to make it happen. And so I knew it was the only thing they lacked was self-confidence,
Right.
and that's the reason why I got up and called a press conference and said, we're going to win the national championship in 5 years.
And you did.
And then brought in people that knew I said that, knew I believed it, and I told them, don't come with me if you don't believe it. I can't pay you as much now, but I pay you a lot later. And they came, they fought, and we delivered.
You know, you did win the national championship in 1983. Really shocked some people.
Beat the hell out of Nebraska 31-30.
Hey, you had one more point than they did. You know, I know the information you had at the time, obviously you made the move to the USFL because you thought it was the right move. But I think you had redshirted guy. I think Jimmy Johnson maybe had 55 freshmen or so when he came. 57 freshmen. And you left that program loaded.
Yeah, he had 3 quarterbacks that were redshirt sophomores.
Yeah. Testaverde.
Kozar, Testaverde, and Vanderveer.
Yeah.
And he blew it, lost 5 games in the first year.
Looking back, and again, I know at the time you made the move because you thought it was the best move. Have you ever regretted leaving Miami when you did?
I certainly have regretted it, but if I would have had to make that decision again with the information I had at the time I made it, I would do the same thing over again. But I turned it over to God after that time because of my best laid plans of mice and men.
Right.
My plans didn't work so well, so I let it in God's hand. And he took me back to my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. And I was the only person that had the kind of qualities that they needed in Kentucky. Being a graduate, yet living in Louisville, being born and raised there, going to a Catholic high school, going down to the University of Kentucky, playing for Bryant, playing for Blanton Collier, and then traveling the world and winning a national championship. I'm the only guy that had the ability to bring that coalition together in the direction of the University of Louisville's football team. And I coined that phrase again. We're on a collision course with the national championship, and the only variable is time. Saying that very same thing, but qualifying it because I knew I didn't have a stockpile of athletes that I had at Miami that Lou Saban had brought in, the Kellys and the Jim Burts and a whole bunch of others. At Louisville, we had only 5 players that were legitimate 5 Division I players. The rest of them should have gone to Eastern, Western, Murray, Marshall, or Morehead. And so I had to put a proviso on there. It's that matter of time.
I remember that Fiesta Bowl. You laid a whipping on Alabama. Hey, real quickly, they're wrapping me, Coach, but you mentioned the 72 Dolphins. Yes or no? Are you surprised that team is held up and is still the only undefeated team to finish the season in pro football?
No, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard, and only Don Shula has enough moxie and enough experience and enough believability to hold that thing together. You have to hold that thing together for some 8 months.
It's an amazing record. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you.
We'll see Coach Schnellenberger on the field at halftime with that 1964 Alabama National Championship team. We'll be back after this. And there is a live look at Bryant-Denny Stadium. 2:30, the kick between the Gators and the Tide. CBS Sports will have the coverage, and a little warm, but it is a beautiful day here in Tuscaloosa. Well, you know, the Florida Gators have had a lot of great wide receivers over the years, and one of them is from Alabama, and he's standing by with our own B.J. Milliken on the Walk of Champions. B.J.?
That's right, Gary. It's Chad Jackson, former Gator great, former Hoover great. Thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Now, the only time, correct me if I'm wrong, the only time you actually played against your home state team, Alabama, was in 05. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Now, we're going to look at some video of this game here in just a second. What are your recollections from that game, and what does it feel like being back here?
It's bad feelings, man. The last time I was here and I played on that field, man, they kind of whooped up on us pretty good. You know the tragic injury, man, that happened to Protho, man, and so those are kind of memories that come back when I come back here.
Absolutely. Now, here's some of your highlights on this Chris Leak there. Have you spoken to Chris lately? Is that a guy you keep up with?
I haven't spoken to Chris in a while, man, but last time I seen him, man, he was on the sideline. So hopefully I can try to get his attention today, man, connect with him and say what's up to him, man.
Absolutely. It looks like I did a lot of trickery in this offense. Urban Meyer was there. What was it like playing for Coach Meyer?
He's a great guy, man. Great guy off the field and on the field. If you live your life right, you go into class and everything, he's going to look out for you. And as a coach, everything, he had a great offensive scheme that he brought to the SEC. And I think it was different for me as far as, a spread offense and everything, and something new towards an offense like that. So I appreciate all this hard work he gave it to us, and we gave hard work to him back.
What went into your decision to not stay home but to go to Florida when you made that choice?
I think it's I just wanted to do something different. Everybody, once you come out of high school, you wanted it's either Auburn or Alabama. So I wanted to do something different, and Alabama was going through all the coaching changes and everything. They had a lot of things going on. So. And I've been a Florida fan ever since my sophomore year in high school. Once they started recruiting me, man, I said, hey, that's nothing else. That's where I'm going.
There you go. Now, to be a wide receiver, you need confidence. Is that correct?
Definitely, most definitely.
Now, Amari Cooper is a guy that we see a lot of here in Tuscaloosa. He had a comment this week that he said that he could not be covered man-to-man. We'll listen to that in just a second. Let's look at some Amari Cooper video. What do you see in Amari Cooper's game that you really like and that makes him such a good player for the Crimson Tide?
Okay. I think Amari Cooper's game is a lot different from mine, man. I think he has a lot more moves and a lot more shake than I did. Me, I was kind of just pure speed, getting open and everything. He has a lot more moves after the catch, and I think I like that about him, especially special ability.
Here's Amari talking about his confidence in no one being able to cover him man-to-man.
I don't believe that there's anyone who could cover me one-on-one, simply because I've been playing receiver for so long, and that's probably it.
There you go. So Amari Cooper says, nobody can cover me. If I were to ask Chad Jackson, even now, could anyone have covered you back then?
I don't think so, man. As a receiver, you got to have that confidence. You want to go out the field, the DBs are going to try to take as much advantage as you can as you. And you got all advantage, through the penalties and the rules they have nowadays. So as a receiver, you got to have that confidence. And once you have that confidence, you go out there and play like that.
There you go. Now, any predictions on this game today? What does Florida have to do to get a win?
Florida has to bring that offense today, man. I'm kind of worried about the quarterback situation. Hopefully Driscoll will come out and do it and play his game, man. We got playmakers on the outside. And Alabama's defense is just tough right now. So to compete with these guys today, we're going to have to bring the offense, and the defense is going to have a special step up today as well.
There you go. Chad Jackson, thank you so much for being with us.
I appreciate you having me.
Gary, we're going to send it back over to you.
All right, thank you, BJ. Good stuff there with Chad, and good analysis on Amari Cooper. I was interested to hear him say that he thinks Amari's got more moves than he had. All right, we are cruising along here with an awesome show so far. Glad that you're with us, but we're not done yet. We've got more Crimson Tide Kickoff coming to you live from the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And, we've already talked to Coach Bowden and Coach Schnellenberger. There's another legend right there. Gene Stallings also in town for that 1964 reunion. The coach won a national championship himself as the head coach at Alabama in 1992. Taking pictures with the Bama fans. More Crimson Tide Kickoff right after this. Stay with us.
Welcome into Scott on the Street. It's week 2. It's the SEC home opener. Florida Gators are in town. Need I say any more? We're on the campus, University of Alabama. We're going to find out what our beloved students think about the Gators. Follow me. All right, we're here with Jeremy. And Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us. And it's Florida week. What do you think of when you kind of hear the phrase the Florida Gators?
Well, I'll be honest with you. They're usually a pretty tough team, but you know what? They're no match for our Tide. No match whatsoever.
The first thing that comes in Florida is like when we played Florida back in, a couple of years ago, and Tim Tebow crying. So I think that's like the memories I have with Florida.
But what famous beverage was created at the University of Florida?
Like a soft drink beverage? I don't know. I'm going to go with orange juice, but I know that's I don't know.
Let's see. Orange juice? Is it a soda?
Gatorade.
Oh, Gatorade.
Gatorade? Gatorade? Yeah. I got lucky. I got lucky on that one.
Thank you, Scott. Man, that's funny stuff. I think I could break it down, literally. Break dancing on the quad. I think that's the first on Crimson Tide Off. All right, let's get into the Alabama offense and the task that they have today in order to keep rolling. 500 or more yards in every game so far this season, but this is their first test against an SEC defense. Lane Kiffin has found a formula that works. It's simple. Get the ball into the hands of Amari Cooper. Blake Sims has found Amari to be his best friend so far in 2014, and it certainly helps when you have TJ Yeldon, Derrick Henry, and Kenyon Drake to turn and hand the ball off to keep defenses honest. Amari spoke earlier this week on the bond he's formed with his quarterback.
Blake has just been on the money for these past 3 games. He's throwing the ball really accurately, and he's trusting in me. He's trusting in all of us.
I mean, I feel like we still have a ton to work on communication-wise. We still had a couple busts on the offensive line that we have to get out. Obviously, this D-line we're playing is really good, so we have to get it worked out and get the kinks fixed.
Here's a look at some of the numbers for the Tide through 3 games. A historic start to the Lane Kiffin era. 1,705 yards of total offense. That's a school record through 3 games. Plus, the Tide has only gone 3 and out twice in 2014. That helps out your defense. All right, it is time now for our player spotlight. You know, so much attention this year on O.J. Howard at the tight end position because he's so talented. But last week, there was a tight end that caught the first touchdown pass for that position so far this season, and it was 5th-year senior Brian Vogler. He is our player spotlight feature. Here's Andrew Clare.
He is one of the biggest guys on the team, and growing up, 5th-year senior tight end Brian Vogler was a huge Florida fan.
With it being a team that I grew up as a huge fan of, being a guy that didn't necessarily graduate from the state of Florida, but grew up in Florida, and my parents went to Florida, so it's always a good opportunity when we get to play them.
Vogler has been used primarily as a blocking tight end, but this past Saturday against Southern Miss, he caught his 2nd career touchdown pass, which was his first in Bryant-Denny Stadium.
I've never scored at home before, so to get that under my belt, I guess you could say it was a bucket list kind of thing, but it was a great experience.
Alabama has several talented tight ends, and they share a special bond that goes far beyond the gridiron.
The tight end dinner. We do it every Thursday night. One of the guys will just buy a meal for the rest of the tight ends, and we alternate it throughout the over the course of the season.
With the Tide beginning conference play, they will look to get Vogler and the tight ends more involved in the passing game.
You know, anytime you get the opportunity to have the ball in your hands, it feels great. You know, it makes you feel like you're more a part of the offense. And not saying necessarily you aren't as a blocker, but you know, it's nice to have the ball in your hands.
Alabama will need Vogler to bring his A game in order to beat his favorite childhood team. For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Andrew Clare.
Thank you, Andrew. And here's a look at the production from the tight end so far, or lack thereof. Only 3 receptions at that position, none of them by all-conference sophomore O.J. Howard. Maybe today is the day that O.J. gets untracked. Crimson Tide Kickoff rolls on after the break, so you will want to stay right here with us because we're not done. We're coming back to Tuscaloosa, and activity is picking up as the Walk of Champions will happen in about 35 minutes, and the fans are anticipating the arrival of the Tide. Stay with us. Welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff presented by Alpha Insurance. We're counting down until 2:30. That's when the Tide and the Gators are scheduled to kick it off from Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama's first SEC game of the season. And we'll have all the highlights and post-game reaction from today's game right here tonight on Sports Saturday with B.J. Milliken. That will start right after the 10 o'clock news, right around 10:13 or so. So make sure and tune in for your Bama breakdown, plus a look around the SEC, the nation, and, of course, the Stillman Tigers and our state teams as well. That's tonight following the 10 o'clock news. Sports Saturday with B.J. Milliken, only right here on Alabama's home team, WVUA. Well, it's now time to check in on the weather with Richard Scott one more time on the Walk of Champions. Richard, we know it's going to be hot. We've already talked about it, but, you know, just how hot is it going to be? And we'll be a little more comfortable by the end of the game.
You'll get really hot starting off the game. We were talking about temperatures in the upper 80s. One good thing is the humidity levels are relatively low, so it's a little more bearable. But if you are going to the game, pack the sunscreen, take some water. It's going to be a really hot game in Tuscaloosa. There's the game day forecast, a little bit of a breeze there out of the east around 5 miles per hour. That will help some. Temperatures in the upper 80s at the 2:30 kickoff, around 87 at halftime. only cooling off just a little bit by the time we wrap up the game at Bryant-Denny Stadium as Alabama takes on Florida. So, Gary, it is really looking hot for this game. The good news is, though, again, the humidity levels will be a touch lower, so it's not going to be as humid as it was the first game of the season here in Tuscaloosa, Gary.
Thank you so much, Richard, and I think everybody's going to manage today. I think the football will keep everybody's mind off the heat. All right, that is all the time that we have for this edition of Crimson Tide Kickoff. Don't forget, if you missed any of our fantastic interviews with Chad Jackson, Coach Bobby Bowden, and Howard Schnellenberger, you can log on anytime to WVUATV.com and find a replay of CTKO. We were going to try to have Jimmy Johns on today. He got caught in traffic, did not make it. The former Alabama running back, maybe we'll have him on a program in the future. A big thanks to our entire CTKO crew. They really worked hard to put this program on, and thank you for watching, everybody. Enjoy the game and roll Tide. See you later.